The rain didn't stop all morning. Dark clouds covered the alien city. Water ran down the metal rooftops like tears. But the woman standing in the street didn't move. Her long coat was soaked, her feet were cold, and her heart felt empty. She held a small bag, her only belongings. Her name was Clara, once a proud wife in a respected alien family. But today, she was nothing. Her husband's voice still echoed in her ears, sharp like a blade. "You're barren. I need a real mate, someone who can give me a child." He shouted. He pointed to the door, his eyes full of disgust. "Leave, Clara. You're of no use to me anymore." Clara didn't cry. She had cried too many times already alone in the nights, holding her empty womb and praying to stars that never answered. She gave him everything, love, care, loyalty. But because she couldn't give him a child, she was now trash in his eyes. Her world had no place for women like her. Here, a woman's worth was measured by how many children she gave. No child meant no value. No child meant no love. Clara stepped onto the dusty road. She didn't know where to go. She had no parents, no friends left. She had sold her jewelry just to survive the last week. Her stomach ached from hunger, but her heart hurt more. The streets grew quieter as she moved toward the outer gates of the city. Beyond these gates, there was only wilderness and a small human settlement. She had heard strange stories about them, that they were rough, different, sometimes kind, but always dangerous. Still, it was her only hope as the sun began to set. Her legs started shaking. The cold wind cut through her soaked clothes like knives. Her skin turned pale, her vision blurred. But she kept walking, step by step, like a ghost without a home. "I will not die like this," she whispered to herself. "If I'm not a mother, I'll still be something, someone." Just as her knees gave out, and her body started to fall forward into the muddy ground, she felt strong hands catch her. "Whoa, easy now," a deep voice said, surprised and gentle. She looked up slowly, her eyes filled with confusion and fear. It was a human man, tall, with tired eyes and messy brown hair. Behind him stood 4 children, all looking at her with wide eyes. They weren't afraid of her. They looked worried. "Are you hurt?" the man asked. She tried to speak, but only air came out. The darkness took over her, and she fainted in his arms. He lifted her carefully and looked at the children. "Let's get her inside now," he said. The kids nodded and ran ahead, guiding him through a small gate toward the human colony. That night, while she slept under a warm blanket in a stranger's home, something changed. She didn't know it yet, but her real story was just beginning, not as someone's rejected wife, but as someone who might finally be chosen. When Clara opened her eyes, the world looked different. There was no rain, no shouting, no cold ground. Instead, there was a soft blanket, the smell of warm soup, and the sound of children laughing in the next room. She blinked slowly, her body still weak. The last thing she remembered was collapsing near the human colony gate. Now she was inside a small house made of stone and wood. It wasn't big, but it felt safe. The door creaked open, and a human man walked in. He had strong arms, tired eyes, and a soft smile. Behind him, 4 children peeked inside, their faces full of curiosity and kindness. "You're awake," the man said gently. "I wasn't sure you'd make it." Clara tried to sit up, but her muscles ached. He stepped forward and helped her rest against the wall. "I'm Jack," he said. "This is my home, and those are my kids, Emma, Leo, Max, and little Zoe." The children waved shyly, and Zoe, the smallest one, walked closer. She held out a bowl of soup with tiny hands. "For you," she whispered, smiling. Clara stared at the bowl, her throat tight. No one had shown her this kind of kindness in years, not even her own people. She took the bowl slowly, her fingers trembling. "Thank you," she said softly. Emma, the oldest girl, stepped beside her father. "Dad says you're an alien," she said, tilting her head. "But you don't look scary," Leo nodded. "You look like a tired fairy." The room filled with light laughter, and even Clara smiled. Jack sat down across from her, his voice calm. "You collapsed outside our town. Right near the fence. I figured I couldn't just leave you there." She looked away, ashamed. "I didn't mean to come here," she said. "I had nowhere else to go." Jack leaned back, folding his arms. "Well, everyone needs a place to rest," he said. "And you're safe here for now." Later that evening, as the sun dipped low, Jack gave her space to rest. The children played quietly in the corner, drawing pictures and singing old Earth songs. Clara watched them in silence, her heart aching. She once dreamed of having her own children, but her body never allowed it, and her people never forgave her for that. Now, 4 human children laughed and played near her, free and wild. She had nothing to give them, and yet they gave her everything. Comfort, smiles and warmth. As night fell, Jack placed a small pillow and a thicker blanket beside her. "I'll fix the guest room tomorrow," he said. "For tonight, you can sleep here." Clara hesitated. "Why are you helping me?" she asked in a quiet voice. "I'm not your kind," Jack shrugged. "Kindness doesn't need matching skin." "I have 4 kids and too many chores," he smiled. "Maybe you're here for a reason." She watched him walk away, his daughter Zoe now in his arms. Already half asleep, the room dimmed. The fire crackled, and for the first time in years, Clara felt seen. She closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "Maybe I'm not broken. Just in the wrong place." That night, she didn't cry. She dreamed instead of laughter, warmth, and a family that wasn't hers, yet somehow felt like it could be. The morning sun crept through the small wooden window. Its golden light fell gently on Clara's face, warming her cold skin. She opened her eyes slowly, feeling rested for the first time in many cycles. The blanket was still tucked around her, and the room smelled of something sweet, maybe bread or fruit. She sat up and noticed something folded on the floor near her feet. It was a clean dress, not human in style, but simple and soft, clearly given with care. Beside it, a small note, written in uneven handwriting. "You can stay. Please don't go." And Lara held the note close to her chest. No one had ever asked her to stay before. She had always been expected to leave, to disappear, to be forgotten in the next room. She could hear quiet laughter, spoons clinking, and tiny feet running across the floor. She stood, wore the dress, and walked toward the sound. As she entered the kitchen, 4 bright faces turned to her with wide smiles. "You're awake," Max shouted, his toast flying off his plate. Emma grinned. "We saved you breakfast." Zoe, the youngest, jumped up from her chair and pulled Clara toward the table. "Come sit next to me," she said, patting the empty spot beside her. Jack turned from the stove, wiping his hands on a towel. "Morning," he said with a nod. "Hope you like eggs and bread. We don't have much." "But it's warm," Clara nodded slowly, her throat too tight for words. She sat beside Zoe and took the warm plate they offered. It was simple food, but it tasted like love. From that day forward, the days grew gentle and kind. Clara began helping around the house, not because anyone asked, but because she wanted to. She washed the dishes with Emma, picked wild fruits with Max, and sang soft songs to Zoe when she couldn't sleep. Jack often watched silently from the side, noticing how peaceful the home felt again. One afternoon, Jack was fixing a broken fence post outside, while Clara knelt nearby in the garden. The kids were chasing each other in the grass, laughing like the wind itself. Jack looked up and said, "You don't have to work so hard." Clara smiled faintly, brushing dirt from her hands. "I want to," she replied. "I like feeling useful." Jack nodded, then paused. "You're more than useful, Clara. You've brought something into this house we didn't even know we were missing." She looked at him, confused. "Like what?" He shrugged. "Peace maybe. Joy," he added. "The kids haven't laughed like this in a long time." Clara lowered her eyes, her voice barely a whisper. "I thought I was broken," she said. "Back on my planet. Being unable to bear children means you are nothing." Jack's hands stopped moving. He stood quietly, thinking, then said, "Being a parent isn't just about blood. It's about love, patience, showing up every day, no matter what. The wind blew softly between them, carrying the laughter of the children. Clara looked up again, and in Jack's eyes, she saw something new: acceptance. That evening, after dinner, Zoe tugged at Clara's hand. "Can you tell us a bedtime story?" she asked, eyes sparkling. "Please, a real alien one." Clara nodded slowly. She sat on the floor. The kids gathered around her like tiny stars. She told them a tale from her homeworld about a lonely moon spirit who found family among the stars. As she spoke, the children's eyes grew wide. Their hands clutched the blanket. When the story ended, Zoe yawned and whispered, "I wish you were our real mommy." Clara froze for a moment. Her heart trembled, and tears quietly filled her eyes. She kissed Zoe's forehead and whispered, "I'm right here." From that night, the children began calling her Aunt Clara, a name full of love, respect, and hope. The days were no longer just gentle, they were healing. Not just for her, but for them all. The human colony was alive with color. Banners fluttered in the breeze, lights hung between wooden poles, and laughter filled the air. It was Harvest Day, a festival where everyone came together to share food, dance, and give thanks. Clara stood at the edge of the small town square, watching with wide eyes. She had never seen anything like this before. Children ran with painted faces, old men played music, and the smell of roasted bread filled the air. Jack walked over holding a plate of fried vegetables. "You okay?" he asked, smiling. Clara nodded slowly. "It's beautiful." Zoe tugged at Clara's hand. "Come dance with us," she shouted, already jumping up and down with excitement. Clara hesitated, unsure, but Emma and Max joined in too, pulling her into the crowd. Before long, she was spinning in a circle with the children, laughing freely, her long hair flowing in the wind, her face glowing in the golden light. For the first time in many years, she didn't feel like an outsider. She felt alive. But joy can be a fragile thing. Dark clouds began to form in the sky, unnoticed at first. Then a loud boom cracked through the air, shaking the ground. People looked up, confused. In the distance, a thick wall of sand rolled toward the colony. A sandstorm, a big one, moving fast. "Get inside. Get the kids." Someone yelled. Panic spread quickly. Tents were pulled down, tables flipped, and parents grabbed their children to run for shelter. Jack grabbed Max and Emma's hands, calling out, "Zoe! Where's Zoe?" Clara spun in all directions, her heart racing. She didn't see the little girl anywhere. She was just here. Emma shouted, tears in her eyes. Then Clara heard it, a faint cry, coming from behind a broken fence near the old storage shed. She dashed through the rising wind, shielding her face with her arms. "Zoe!" she screamed, her voice nearly swallowed by the storm. She spotted the child curled beside a barrel, crying and covering her face as the dust blew hard. Without a second thought, Clara dove forward, covering Zoe with her own body. Sand whipped at her back, stinging like fire. But she held the girl tightly, whispering, "I've got you, little one. I'm not letting go." Jack ran toward them moments later, his coat flying behind him. He reached them, eyes wide with fear. "Clara," he shouted, "are you okay?" She nodded, coughing. "She's safe." Jack lifted Zoe into his arms, then reached for Clara. Together, they ran back toward the house, stumbling through the storm. Inside the home, the children cried, huddled in blankets. Zoe clung to Clara's neck like a baby bird to its mother, refusing to let go. "You saved me," she whispered. "You didn't leave me." Clara held her close, her voice trembling. "I'll never leave you," she said, pressing a kiss to the girl's dusty forehead. Jack stood in the doorway, watching, his heart full of something he hadn't felt in years deep. Quiet love. That night, after the storm passed and the dust settled, people in the village spoke in hushed voices about what Clara had done. An alien woman, once a stranger, had risked her life for a human child. Some nodded in respect, others in disbelief. But no one could ignore what they saw. This wasn't just kindness, it was devotion, at home. Jack handed Lara a warm drink and sat beside her. "You didn't have to go after her like that," he said softly. Clara looked at him, her voice quiet but firm. "She's not just your child anymore. She's mine too." Jack didn't speak for a moment, but his eyes said everything. He reached out, placing his hand over hers. And in that simple touch, something powerful passed between them: trust. From that night forward, things changed. The village looked at Clara with new eyes. Jack looked at her with a new heart, and the children? They had already made up their minds to them. She was no longer Aunt Clara, she was Mom. The storm had passed. But its dust still clung to the edges of every home. People were repairing fences, cleaning rooftops, and sharing stories of bravery. At the center of most whispers was one named Clara. She had become a quiet hero. The alien woman who threw herself into the sand to protect a child. But not everyone admired her. Some humans in the village still didn't trust aliens. And a few aliens who passed through scoffed at her choice to live among humans. Clara ignored the whispers. She had found something more important than others' opinions: love. Every morning, Zoe wrapped her arms around her waist. Max brought her wildflowers from the forest. Emma helped her braid her long hair. And even the serious Leo called her Mom, now when no one was watching. But peace is never perfect. One morning, Jack walked in holding a datapad. His face pale. "Clara," he said slowly, "there's a message for you." She looked at the screen, and her breath caught. It was a formal message written in the language of her people, from her ex-husband. "I have heard of your disgrace. Living with a human, pretending to be a mother to creatures not your own. You shame our name. Return immediately. You belong to me by law." Her hands shook. He had found her, even from far away. He still wanted control. Still treated her like property. Jack's face hardened. "You don't have to go back," he said firmly. "No one owns you here." But Clara stepped away, her voice trembling. "If he comes here with enforcers, your children will be in danger. I cannot stay if it puts them at risk." That night, she packed a small bag. She moved quietly, folding her clothes and wrapping a necklace Zoe had made for her. She didn't cry, but her heart felt like it was breaking all over again. She walked into the kitchen where Jack was fixing a loose chair. He looked up and froze when he saw the bag. "No," he said simply, standing up. "You're not running again." Clara lowered her eyes. "I must protect what I love." Jack stepped closer. "And what if we want to protect you?" Suddenly, small footsteps echoed behind them. The children had woken up, all four standing at the door. Sleepy and confused, Zoe rubbed her eyes. "Where are you going, Mommy?" Clara turned quickly, kneeling to hug her. "I was just—" But the words wouldn't come. Emma stepped forward, her voice strong. "We heard the message. You're not leaving. You're our mom now. That's final." Max nodded, holding Leo's hand tightly. "We'll fight him if we have to," he said bravely. "We have sticks." Jack let out a breath of emotion he'd been holding. He looked at Clara and said, "We don't need you to be perfect, or to give us anything. Clara, we just want you." The next day, news spread fast: alien enforcers were arriving, sent by her ex-husband to retrieve her. Many in the colony grew nervous, afraid of conflict. Some neighbors told Jack to just hand her over, but Jack stood his ground. "She's part of this town, and she's part of my family," he said loudly. "Anyone who comes for her will answer to all of us." A few villagers joined him, then more, until the town square was filled with humans standing beside an alien woman with a kind heart and tired eyes. As the transport ship landed outside the colony walls, Clara stood tall, wearing a plain dress and holding Zoe's tiny hand. Jack stood beside her, arms crossed, ready. His children stood in front of her like shields made of love. Her ex-husband stepped forward, smug and proud. But the sight of her surrounded by people who cared shocked him. This wasn't the broken woman he threw away. This was someone stronger. "You will regret this," he spat. But no one moved. Even the enforcers behind him hesitated. Sensing they were not welcome, Jack stepped forward. "She's not yours," he said, loud and clear. She was never yours, and with that, the ship turned back. The storm that had threatened her life was now blowing away with the dust. Clara didn't run this time. She stayed, because now she belonged. The air was calm after the enforcers left. The people of the colony returned to their homes, but something inside them had changed. They had stood together, not just for Jack or the children, but for her. Clara sat by the small garden behind the house, her hands brushing the soft soil. She had planted new seeds that morning, flowers, herbs, and a small tree that Jack's children had brought her. It was her way of saying, "I'm not going anywhere." Jack approached quietly. Holding 2 cups of warm tea, he sat beside her, watching the wind move gently through her hair. "Looks nice," he said, handing her the cup. "Still want to leave?" Clara smiled faintly. "No," she replied. "Not anymore." For a long moment, they sat in silence. Then Jack spoke again, his voice low and steady. "Do you know why I raised these kids alone?" She turned to look at him, surprised. He rarely spoke about the past. "My wife died during the last cold season," he said, staring at the horizon. "She was kind, strong, just like you. She taught me that family is about more than blood." Clara placed her hand over his. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Jack nodded slowly. "Since you came, I felt peace again," he said. "My kids sleep better, laugh more. They feel whole. I do too." Her heart beat faster. She had once begged for this feeling from a man who never saw her worth, and now, here was someone who saw everything she was. That evening, the village gathered for a small celebration. It wasn't planned. People just brought food, music, and firelight. It was their way of saying thank you to Clara. Children danced around the fire. Old women handed her freshly baked bread. Even the cold-hearted neighbors nodded with quiet respect. At one point, Emma and Max stood on a small table and made an announcement. "This is our mom," Emma said proudly. Holding Clara's hand, "She saved Zoe. And she saved our hearts too." People clapped, some wiped away tears. Clara stood frozen, overwhelmed. Zoe climbed onto her lap and placed a handmade flower crown on her head. "You're not just my mom," she whispered. "You're our queen." Clara couldn't hold back the tears anymore. They fell silently, not from pain, but from healing. She was no longer empty, no longer ashamed. Later that night, as the fire turned to embers, Jack took her hand and led her to the center of the gathering. Everyone turned to look, curious. Jack cleared his throat, then looked into her eyes. "Clara," he said, "I know you've been broken, abandoned, and hurt, but here, in this house, in this town, you are loved, you are needed." He paused, then dropped to one knee, surprising everyone. Even the children gasped. "I don't have riches or a big name," Jack said, "but I do have 4 children who already call you Mom. And I have a heart that beats stronger every day because of you." He pulled out a small silver band, simple but shining in the firelight. "I don't want you because I need something from you. I want you because you're you. Will you stay not just in this home, but in our lives?" Clara covered her mouth with both hands, her eyes wide. She wasn't dreaming. She wasn't being used this time. Someone was choosing her. She reached out slowly, nodding with tears streaming down her cheeks. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll stay." The crowd cheered. The children hugged them both tightly, and Jack slipped the ring onto her finger. That night, under the stars and beside the garden she had planted with hope, Clara felt complete. not because she was a mother by birth, but because she was loved, wanted, and finally home.